got Maddie here, area director of Crimson Heights, and we just wanted to chat or have a discussion on chain of command. We know that it's something that we hear of often, and um, just trying to help people understand what chain of command means, the purpose of it, and kind of giving some insight maybe in how we utilize that within our own company and how organizationally chain of command is important. So information from the top down is disseminated appropriately, and then information from mid-level management and up is given correctly. I think communication and how information is given is a obstacle that we see often, right? Like we hear often, it's upper management or it's us versus them, and a lot of times those narratives are very destructive to a culture, and they really prevent a company or an organization from growing and um, and and doing well and expanding. And so I think you know having the ability to set the expectation of what that looks like, and explaining to people this is the purpose of it is very important. So what have you seen, like within Crimson Heights, maybe in your own, because you've had other experiences working in other organizations and companies, and kind of walk me through what you have seen be successful, and what that means for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell this to the staff all the time that as much as I want to be able to answer every question or answer everything that they need from me, I don't have the time to do that. Otherwise, it'd be a full-time job just answering questions, which is kind of why we have to have a chain of command because we have a lot of employees now, so it's hard to be able to answer all the questions. So that's why we created the chain of command we have. And I find it very helpful that like the team leads are supposed to answer the question for the staff, and then they have someone that they know to go to, and then following up the chain of command to get the answers that they need without it being a full-time job for someone, because we all have other responsibilities to keep the business going. Been at other programs, and I think that was a big reason why I liked coming to Crimson is because we had that structure. I knew who to go to get my answers. I knew as I grew in this company, I was able to have more say in those answers as well. So that's huge coming from a different program that was already very lasting for a long time, and they had their way of doing things and not always giving the why or why we do things and having those answers for the staff that were with the clients. So I think that Crimson does it very well. Is like we try to get the why from you, the owner, down to the direct care staff to everyone who works at Crimson. So I think that's huge with for companies.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, I mean, being someone that has worked in the front lines in human service and the behavioral health, I know what that feels like to receive a directive and not understand the purpose behind that directive. Because as a front, the reality is the business, the organization, and the company goes as the frontline staff members go. They are the ones in the trenches. They're the ones doing the hardest work. They're the ones essentially making the business operate. And so a lot of that is when information and communication is passed down, it's really helping the mid-level management understand why that information is there, buying into the overall purpose and mission of the company so that they can help hold their teams accountable to those directives. And if if the staff members or team members that report to them have issues with it, we know that the mid-level management have that stewardship, and they have that ownership to be able to say, no, 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 no. I believe in what we're doing. I believe in this directive because I can see the vision that we're going. And so because I believe in it and I understand that this is where it's coming from, and communicating to them then they can help get buy-in. What we've seen is when there's that disconnect with mid-level management and then, higher leadership all the way up to the CEO or ownership, whatever the case may be, we start to see those disconnects in the front line. Um, and so going back to what I was saying about being someone that's been in the trenches is when that's explained to me and I understand a CEO or someone coming into the company saying, "Hey, we had a great year last year. We did $20 million in revenue and profit, and the company's going great." As a frontline staff, my impression is I didn't see any of that
Mhm.
$20 million. What's going on? Like the company's doing great, but I didn't see any of that. I've been asking for this equipment or this material for 6 months, but where is that? The
Mhm.
company's doing great and I'm not benefiting from that. And so it's having in our organization, we have, team leads and house leads that report to an associate director who reports to an area director and so forth. When they can say, okay, we saw that the company did well in this year, it's more than me just getting a $4 raise in the last 4 years. It's about the company's doing well. Therefore, we know that we have more resources to expand into new geolocations. We have more resources for marketing. We have more resources for um, materials or whatever the case may be. And therefore, there's more job security and more opportunity to move into leadership. Because if we're expanding and growing, I have the opportunity to move into a leadership role, or I have opportunity if I do my part and I buy into what the organization is trying to do, then I have the ability to expand into those new positions and reap the benefits of what the company is trying to do. What are your thoughts about that? Can you speak to maybe kind of how someone on the front lines, yourself, working in the trenches, how you feel and how chain of command is, how you've seen that be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you were saying, like the growth is so much different here than like other companies. Like I started as direct care staff here and I've grown so much with the company. I've learned so much with the company that like you're saying is the money, and I think this is where a lot of staff and even I struggled as a staff knowing like where's all the money going. And so I think it's super important to like go bring it back to the why, because if a staff asks that, like why are you working in this field? It's because the clients and you want to help the clients, and that's why I'm in this field, and I think that's why most other people join this field is because they want to help the clients. And by doing that, we could only help more the faster or the more we grow, because we're expanding into Spanish Fork, we're expanding into Vegas, and we're only doing that because we're making enough money to expand. And I think that's kind of where it gets lost as staff see like the smaller picture of things, like this one location doesn't have brand new pencils or something like that. Whereas a lot as you grow in management, you have to think of the bigger picture, like we need to set up this new home in Spanish Fork or this new office in Vegas. And so we need to kind of spread out the funds rather than just one single place. Still make sure they all get what they need, but also be know that, like, the extra money that's coming in is going towards new resources for expanding the business. So they're still getting what they need, but we're also giving what they need to Spanish Fork and those kind of locations, and I think that's kind of where the staff who are tend to be pretty young are kind of missing that point. Is like they see the smaller focus of things and have a hard time seeing the bigger picture of everything. So chain of command could definitely help with that. I think even just having smaller conversations of like, oh, we opened a Spanish Fork house today. We're helping 3 new kids. Like that's amazing. Or we are taking in 5 new clients in Spanish Fork day treatment. Like that's what because we've done so well in St. George and Cedar, and we've been able to help create that growth, and kind of influence them that way. I think it has a lot to do with like the way things are approached by management. So like if our associate directors are making it like presenting it a way of like we're helping more kids. We're expanding to northern Utah now and Nevada and all these other places to help more kids, then I think it's gonna be taken different as a staff. Like I know personally I would have taken it differently than like, oh, the company's making a lot of money and we're not seeing it here. We're missing all these materials or we're not getting new pencils. And so it's all about the way that the chain of command handles that communication and communicating to the direct care staff is if they're going to have that buy-in even.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very, very valid point. And um, being someone myself on the front lines, not understanding the business side of organizations, you don't realize how much capital is needed to operate a business.
Mhm.
It's insane. You have so many different expenses, building expansions, marketing, FICA taxes, employee payroll, whatever the case may be. I mean, all those things are needed to operate a company. Um, and so long that, and that doesn't even have to be a point of emphasis or focus. It's really just helping people understand, hey, we're doing well this year and we're doing well because of you guys.
Mhm.
And as long as we have our mid levels and front lines feeling like they're being heard and understood and listened to, and a lot of that comes down to the relationship, right? Like if you feel like your supervisor cares about you, I know that this is kind of a saying that's always stood out to me. You don't work for you don't work for the company, you work for the person that supervises you. And so there's so much power in that person that you report to. Um, and and so I think as an organization, having them involved in those conversations so that there is an understanding is very important. And so where some of the disconnects that you see, and how are some ways that we can mediate that to help create better understanding?
Mhm. Um, I think with this field, it's very interesting compared to like other businesses. I think that like communicating that why more often, like yes, we do it in like bigger meetings or trainings, but I think even just having the staff check in with their why of like, I know my why and I know why I'm here in this field and with Crimson even, and so just checking with staff and, like, hearing why they're in the field is huge. Like, I like when I do interviews because I get to ask that. I'm like that's the first question I ask. I'm like, "Why are you working in this field? What brought you to this field?" Because for everyone, it's a little bit different. Some people have kind of the same journey, but everyone has a different and unique reason why they are in this field. And, like, even why they end up at Crimson, like, it's different for everybody. This might be their first job in the field, and so it's brand new experience. Others might have been working in the field for 10 plus years. So I think checking in with the frontline staff and our mid management of like making sure that they know their why, because if they don't have it, it's really hard to continue to work in this field or continue to be bought into Crimson if you don't know those things.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, we that's kind of a point of emphasis that we talk about often is the why and the passion, because human service it's a difficult field because you're dealing with it's not labor intensive. It's not like being a framer or working in construction. It's very emotionally um, difficult because you're dealing with individuals that have a lot of trauma, a lot of challenges that you're trying to help work them through. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of perseverance and resilience, emotionally and mentally, and and that's difficult for people sometimes. So, but to your point, kind of going back to the mission and the values and helping people understand, where Crimson, for our organization in particular, where Crimson started in 2017 and where we are in 2024. there's a lot of opportunity here. And if you feel passionate about behavioral health, if you feel passionate about an all inclusive, comprehensive approach to treatment where we're not only serving individuals with mental health challenges, but with autism, developmental challenges, at risk youth, and we're taking a lot of different approaches, then there's a lot of opportunity here. And what does that opportunity look like? What does that opportunity mean for you? And what does it require from you to be able to get there as a team? And so everyone has their role and responsibility that needs to be handled so that we can continue, which has always been the vision, is to serve as many underserved, underprivileged families as possible that don't have access to the care and help that maybe um, a more fortunate family or person may have. And so, um, yeah, if, I mean, kind of looking at your role, what have you noticed and what have you seen from people maybe feeling like they're not heard, and what has been your approach to help them feel heard and help them buy into the mission, and what have you seen work?
Yeah. Um, Usually when they don't feel heard, it's a lot of complaining and everything's negative about Crimson at that point. And a lot of times they reach out to me if they don't feel heard from their team leader, their associate director, they'll eventually be like, "Hey, I'm gonna reach out to the next person I can."
Mhm.
And so when I do have those situations, I like to just hear them out. I want to hear their complaints because they probably have a valid reason of like why they feel that way. It might not be a valid complaint, but like they definitely feel that way for a reason, whether that's because they're not being heard or they feel like they don't have a future in this career, whatever that looks like. I want to hear it so I actually could handle like what is really going on rather than like just like, okay, you want a pay raise, okay, let's figure that out. But I want to know like what it really is. So a lot of times like I just have a conversation with them. I just like to listen to them and see where they're at with
Mhm.
that. And then I like to bring in their supervisor after I've had a conversation with them because ultimately they should be still following the chain of command, going back to that. And I want to know like to have them give that feedback to their supervisor because that's they're not going to learn any other way as the supervisor unless they get that feedback, and it's even better from coming from the people we need to hear it from, so like our staff. And recently one of my employees actually gave me feedback and I really appreciate it because a lot of times I don't get feedback, and how am I going to get any better without that feedback? So I think that's super important is having the staff know that they could give feedback to their supervisors and be able to, and sometimes they just need someone extra in the room just so they have that little bit of confidence. And so giving it back to them following the chain of command, but also getting heard and listened to and what they need out of
Yeah,
Crimson. So,
yeah, yeah. That's an awesome point. How often do we see team members not know how to handle conflict,
all the time.
and because they struggle with the ability to, we call it crucial conversations, have that crucial conversation with the person that you have the conflict with. We see them going around that person, we see them talking to other people, we see them trying to go above them. And our philosophy is you need to try to tackle that issue head on with that person first. Get in a room with them, get on the phone with them. We don't care what it is. Have a conversation and try to hash it out, talk it through with them. Now, there are exceptions to that. If there was, sexual harassment or abuse or something that was more severe, we have different policies on how to report that. But generally speaking, conflict can be resolved by bringing that person face to face and talking through those issues. And that's another breakdown that we see is, you know, team members or people will try to bring in other people to kind of side with them, kind of have side conversations, and it just creates an environment that doesn't allow us to tackle issues head on. And so, what's your take on conflict resolution? And how have you seen, or what's been your approach to help someone handle conflict with someone that maybe they're coming to you about a situation when in reality they need to be going to that person?
Yeah, it happens all the time, unfortunately, like, nobody wants to have those hard conversations, so a lot of times they go to their friends that they work with or, like, their coworkers instead of going to that person, and then it just creates a kind of just unnecessary drama that people aren't gonna wanna deal with, and so with that, when people try to come to me with that or go to one of the associate directors with that, I redirect them. I'm like, "Have they talked to the person?" That's the first thing I ask is like, "Have they actually talked to the other individual?" Because 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be solved that way. Like, so many people miscommunicate the way that they just have conversations, so they don't fully understand where they're coming from or they got a weird look from them one day, and so it's just having a conversation like, "Hey, I didn't appreciate that, like, what was this about?" And actually understanding from the other person's perspective. Like, that's a big thing for us is, like, seek to understand first before you're seeking to be heard. So that is huge, is I think that's the biggest portion of conflict resolution is you have to be able to listen before you're able to respond with what you're gonna say,
Hmm.
because otherwise you're just yelling and nobody's listening and nothing's gonna get resolved that way.
Yeah.
So redirection to back to that person.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. And I mean, just kind of thinking, obviously it goes both ways, chain of command, right? It goes from the top down and the bottom up. And so from the top down, there needs to be a strong understanding within the executive team who then trickle the information and vision down into the mid-level management, into the team leads, into the front lines. And so if for me, I'll try to take ownership and accountability if I see this breakdown of overall vision and mission of Crimson, and we're getting kind of lost on the front lines on what are we really doing here, then I can own that. And we meet every week, right? An executive team, and kind of go over what our purpose is. And so that's where myself, the CEO, and the area level directors can come in and really get on the same page so that they're strong in helping. Um, I say subordinate, but those that report to them can have confidence on how to handle those issues. Because I'm just thinking about if you have a frontline individual that brings up an issue to a team lead, and the team lead's response is, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It is broken. I mean, that right there creates chaos. That creates a major breakdown, and that hurts us the most. If that interaction is broken, then we're not going to grow. We're not going to develop. And so being able to have a team lead come to them in confidence to say, hey, listen, I hear you. And a lot of this is leadership training too. Team leads and house leads, they're new as the leaders, so they don't understand how to manage and handle conflict. But that interaction in a healthy way would be, hey, I hear you, I understand what you're saying, and I want to help you. Give me a day, let me find out the answer and get back to you. And then they can go to their associate level, report, have a conversation with them. Hey, this is being addressed. And hopefully there's a healthy interaction at that point. If the associate level or whatever organization you're in that mid-level management is then saying, yeah, you're right, I don't know, there is an issue with us versus them narrative, we have some major concerns and issues at that level. And so it's really coming in and helping support them, that they feel heard, that they feel supported, and that they feel empowered to have the information and the answers to help solve those issues, and that they have the buy-in. Um, and so I don't know if you have any more thoughts to speak to that, but those are kind of the two dichotomies of from the top down to the bottom up that I think are important to take consideration. Do you have any more thoughts about that?
Um, just kinda like that first scenario you gave of, like, the team lead giving the staff that feedback. Like, we may have just lost a staff that would've been amazing and grown in the company just from that one interaction.
Hmm.
So, no, I think you hit it, like, the nail on the head, like, all of that's true, like, we had to have communication up and down the chain, like, and everyone needs to feel that support up and down the chain from their supervisor, and so that is huge too, is, like, knowing you have that support of your supervisor, and if you need support or redirection or help with anything, like, you could reach out to them and not have any, like, pushback of, like, "Sorry, you're on your own." Like, they'll help
Right.
you grow into knowing the answer next time, you'll
Yes.
handle it on your own, so
Absolutely. And in a healthy structure organization, it would be our hope that, you know, a frontline could discuss their issues with their house leader, team lead. If they
mhm,
didn't know the answer, they could go to their associate, even if they felt a little disgruntled. If they still felt empowered to go to their associate, maybe the associate feels disgruntled. Maybe you have two disgruntled mid level positions. It would still be our hope that they could go to their supervisor and find resolution
mhm,
in that situation. Because if we can have a healthy way of communication where they can group and find a solution to bring back down, that would be the most ideal. And so I think that's a point of emphasis for us within our organization to get to that point where each person has the information, they're empowered to know how to handle that situation. And if they're in a place where they're just done, like they have no interest in helping Crimson, they're just completely done, let's try to find a way to put you in a situation where you're happy because
mhm.
Crimson's not it. And we'll support you in that. Let's help you find another situation where you're feeling passionate, because being unhappy in the workplace is no good for anyone.
Exactly, yeah. I've actually had a conversation with a few different people, like, we want you to be happy here, and
Mhm.
you need to take that in consideration with your future. Like, we want to keep you here, we want to have you stay here, and we'll help accommodate what you need to take a break. And the staff that I'm speaking of, she loved that. We even had that conversation with her, and she's was able to come up with ideas on her own of what she needed to have a break from particular situation she's in. And so we were able to make those accommodations, and then she's willing to go right back into that situation and keep doing what she's doing, and she is so passionate about what her job is, and I think she'll do great here for the next, hopefully forever, but next few years. So I think that's huge. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm.
Love it. Well, thanks for joining, Maddie.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.